Under the glittering light of crystal chandeliers, the Grand Meridian Hotel ballroom shimmered like a miniature kingdom in the heart of the city. Sleek tuxedos and dazzling evening gowns brushed past one another. The clink of champagne glasses rang out brightly, blending with bursts of elegant laughter. Jack Radcliffe stood at the center of attention, a polite smile on his lips, but his deep blue eyes remained cold, as if staring past the lights into some invisible shadow. Tonight, he was being honored as one of the top 10 most influential lawyers of the decade, a title any attorney would dream of. But to Jack, it felt more like a medal weighing heavily on his chest. Applause erupted as the host read his name. Jack stepped up to the stage, his black suit tailored to perfection, his stride confident yet understated. He could feel hundreds of eyes on him, some filled with admiration, others with envy. His speech was brief, sharp, laced with a few clever jokes that earned warm laughter. But when he spoke of justice and responsibility, his voice faltered just slightly, enough for him to hear the falseness in his own words. Justice? He used to believe in it until the Alicia Ellis case. When the party ended, Jack quietly slipped away from the crowd. He declined a partner's invitation for drinks and stepped outside, where the biting cold of the winter night greeted him. An older reporter, hair silver under a knit cap, suddenly approached. He wasn't carrying a camera, just a small notepad in one hand. His voice was low and deliberate, each word seemingly weighed with care. Radcliffe, the man said, sharp eyes locking on him. Do you regret getting Victor Moss acquitted? The question cut deep, like a blade striking the part of Jack he had tried hardest to bury. He froze, his polite smile vanishing. 2 years ago, the Alicia Ellis case had catapulted him to fame. A young woman brutally murdered in her apartment. Victor Moss, a wealthy businessman, was the prime suspect. Jack Sharp, persuasive, relentless, had dismantled the prosecution's case, turning incriminating evidence into courtroom fodder. The jury declared Moss not guilty. Jack was hailed a hero. But that night, when he reread the case files, doubt began to creep in. One tiny detail, a deleted text, a witness who withdrew, had haunted him ever since. He had won, but at what cost? I don't give interviews after hours, Jack replied coldly, turning away. Yet the reporter's question followed him, clinging to him like a shadow he couldn't shake. Jack got into his car, a sleek black Bentley parked by the curb. He didn't turn on the radio, didn't call anyone. He just drove, away from the city lights, toward the winding mountain roads now blanketed in white. A snowstorm was approaching, but he didn't care. Wind howled through the cracks of the window, bitter cold seeping through. His mind filled with fragmented memories. The devastated look on Alicia's mother's face in court, Victor Moss's smug smile, and Alicia's face, big brown eyes staring at him from newspaper photos. The road grew slicker by the minute. His headlights cut through the dense snow, creating hazy, glowing circles. Jack gripped the steering wheel tightly, forcing himself to stay focused. Then, for a fleeting moment, he glanced into the rearview mirror. A figure, long hair, pale face, eyes that seemed to plead. Alicia. His heart pounded, breath caught in his throat. He knew it couldn't be real, just another hallucination born of too many sleepless nights. But when he looked back at the road, it was too late. The car skidded violently on the icy pavement, tires screeching in vain. Jack slammed on the brakes, but the Bentley didn't obey. It crashed through the guardrail, tumbling down the snowy hillside. The sound of metal crunching echoed through the night. Glass shattered in all directions. Jack's head slammed into the steering wheel, blood streaming down his forehead. He tried to open his eyes, but darkness surged in, swallowing everything. Outside, the wind and snow still howled. But inside Jack Radcliffe's world, there was only a terrifying silence. You're watching Soul Stories, where every story whispers of love, healing, and hope. Let us know which city you're watching from. Don't forget to subscribe and be a part of our journey. Now stay with us. The story is just beginning. The night was bitterly cold, the air sharp as a blade slicing through skin. Thick snow blanketed the winding mountain road, leading to a small town. Maya Ellis drove her old truck, the dim headlights cutting weakly through the blizzard. She had just finished a night shift at the regional hospital, where she worked as an emergency room doctor. Her hands, though well accustomed to emergency surgeries and complex wounds, trembled slightly from the bone-deep chill. The radio crackled out an old jazz tune, but Maya wasn't listening. Her mind drifted to the past, her sister Alicia, and memories that never faded. Suddenly, an orange-red light flared in the distance, slicing through her thoughts. A car lay on its side along the mountainside, its front crushed, the windshield shattered. Smoke billowed from the engine, sparks crackling in the darkness. Maya hit the brakes. Her truck skidded slightly on the icy road before coming to a stop. She grabbed her medical kit from the passenger seat and rushed out without thinking. The snow-laced wind whipped her face, stinging her eyes, but the instincts of a doctor kicked in stronger than any fear. She slid down the slope, her boots digging into the soft snow. As she got closer, she saw the car, a luxury vehicle, now a twisted hunk of metal. The smell of gasoline was thick, and flames were beginning to lick at the car's hood. Maya dropped to her knees and peered through the shattered window. A man lay unconscious in the driver's seat, blood trickling from a gash on his forehead, staining his wrinkled white dress shirt. His chest rose and fell faintly. He was still alive. "Don't give up now," Maya murmured, her voice nearly lost in the wind. She looked around, picked up a heavy rock, and smashed the passenger window. Glass shattered and scattered. She reached in, unlocked the door, and yanked it open with a loud creak. Quickly assessing him, weak pulse, shallow breathing, no signs of a broken neck, she unfastened the seatbelt, wrapped her arms around his shoulders, and pulled. He was heavy, but adrenaline lent her unexpected strength. Just as she dragged him clear, a soft explosion rang out. Flames burst up, engulfing the car's front end. Maya laid the man down on the snow away from the blaze. She knelt beside him, opened her kit, and moved with the speed and precision of a trained physician. She pressed gauze to the wound on his forehead, checked his vitals. "Stay with me," she said calmly but firmly, the way she would with a patient on the edge. She grabbed her phone and called emergency services, giving them the location and condition. While waiting, she wrapped a thin blanket around him to conserve heat, her eyes never leaving his pale face. Thick brows, high-bridged nose, lips drawn tight, he looked like a man carrying an invisible weight, even in unconsciousness. Rescue arrived 15 tense minutes later. Maya directed them to lift him onto the stretcher and rode with them to the town's medical outpost, a small clinic nestled in the valley. There she remained in charge, checking for internal injuries, stitching his forehead with practiced care. As dawn approached, he began to stir, blue eyes blinking open, dazed and confused. Maya was reviewing his medical chart when she heard his voice, raspy and hoarse. "Where am I?" He tried to sit up, but she gently pressed his shoulder down. "You're at the town clinic. You were in a car accident. Rest, you're not stable yet." Her voice was soft but held the firm authority of a doctor. He looked at her, his gaze sharp despite his weakness. "I'm Ed Ramsey," he said, hesitating, as though the name didn't fully belong to him. Maya jotted the name into the chart, but she noticed how he avoided her eyes. Something didn't feel right, but she didn't press. As a doctor, she knew that sometimes patients needed space to keep their secrets. "All right, Ed," she replied, stressing the name slightly as if testing it. "I'm Maya. I'm the night doctor on duty. You're lucky to be alive. Your car's gone completely burned." He nodded faintly, his gaze drifting toward the white walls of the clinic. Something in his expression gave Maya chills, not fear, but an odd feeling, as if she were looking at a man trapped inside his own mind. His eyes were deep, weary, and carried a sorrow she couldn't quite name. Over the next few hours, Maya checked on him regularly, monitoring the stitches and watching for infection. He didn't speak much, answering only briefly, but always thanking her in a low, polite tone. She noticed he didn't resemble an ordinary traveler. His clothes, despite being torn and blood-stained, were clearly expensive. The way he spoke, measured and articulate, hinted at someone highly educated. But she didn't pry. In this town, everyone had a story, and as a doctor, Maya had learned to respect that. As the morning sun filtered weakly through the snow-covered windows, Maya put on her coat to head home. But she glanced back one last time at Ed. He was staring out the window, his hand clenched tightly around the blanket's edge, as though wrestling with some inner storm. That image stayed with her. She shook her head, telling herself it was just another emergency case, then stepped out into the quiet hallway, her footsteps echoing softly. She didn't know that the man calling himself Ed Ramsey was hiding a secret that would turn her life upside down. And in that moment when their eyes first met, an invisible thread had been spun connecting two people, both wounded by the same past. The snow had stopped, leaving the small town draped in a pure white coat that shimmered under the pale morning sun. The mountain clinic, with its aging white walls tinged by time, became Jack's temporary refuge as he recovered. The stitches on his forehead still throbbed when he brushed against them, but that physical pain was nothing compared to the storms raging in his mind. Every night, the dreams returned, visions of Alicia Ellis and her piercing brown eyes accusing him from beyond the grave. Her mother's cries in the courtroom 2 years ago echoed in his sleep, waking him in cold sweat, breath ragged as if he were fleeing some unseen ghost. Jack decided to stay in town for a few weeks, claiming he needed time to heal before returning to his legal work in the city. But deep down, he knew he was running not from flashing cameras or sharp questions about the Victor Moss case, but from himself, a millionaire lawyer with a past stained by regret. Here in the quiet mountains, he could temporarily become Ed Ramsey, a normal man, unburdened by fame or guilt. Maya, the doctor who had saved his life, was another reason he couldn't quite bring himself to leave. She visited him during medical checkups with a professional air, her voice calm but firm, her eyes sharp enough to see straight through him. Jack found himself drawn to her honesty, how she spoke without pretense. Nothing like the carefully polished people he dealt with in the city. But what captivated him most were her eyes, deep, quietly sorrowful, as though she too carried a wound that had never fully healed, a story never told. One afternoon, soft sunlight streamed through the clinic windows as Maya walked in holding a stack of papers. She set them down on the table, sighing, her brows slightly furrowed. "Old Mrs. Carter at the edge of town is being threatened with foreclosure," she said, voice tinged with helplessness. "They say she owes a loan she swears she never signed. I want to help, but legal stuff. I'm not good at it." Jack glanced at the documents, his eyes scanning the fine print. Though he was pretending to be Ed Ramsey, his legal instincts flared to life like muscle memory. "I can take a look," he offered casually, as if it were just a small favor. Maya studied him, a flicker of suspicion in her eyes, but slid the papers toward him, almost like testing him. Over the next 2 days, Jack drafted a sharp legal letter demanding proof of the loan and threatening legal action if the harassment continued. He explained each clause to Maya in a steady, confident tone, as if he were addressing a jury. She read over the letter, raising an eyebrow, her lips tightening slightly as she processed it. "You're not just some legal assistant, are you?" she asked, half teasing, half serious. Jack gave a faint smile and looked away. "I've worked with a few lawyers," he replied vaguely, just enough to keep the truth at bay, but not enough to erase her doubt. Maya wasn't easily fooled. She noticed the way he dissected contracts, how he chose his words precise, strategic, airtight. Those weren't the skills of a casual legal aid. She didn't press him, but curiosity grew inside her. She began to observe the small things, the way his hands clenched when he spoke of work in the city, the way his eyes dimmed when she brushed against sensitive topics. There was something about him that made her both want to get closer and keep her guard up. In the following days, Jack started venturing out of the clinic, wandering around the town. It was a strangely peaceful place, with wooden houses tucked beneath pine trees, snow-covered streets, and the sound of children's laughter drifting from the schoolyard. One morning, he stepped into the small general store. The owner, a middle-aged woman with her hair tied in a bun, smiled warmly at him. "You're the new guy at the clinic, right?" she said, placing a bag of apples on the counter. "Heard you had an accident. Lucky you had Dr. Maya." Jack nodded, managing a polite smile. "Yeah, I got lucky. Name's Ed." "Ed, huh? Well, welcome to town," she laughed, pushing the apples toward him. "Consider it a welcome gift. Everyone here loves Maya. She's our treasure." Jack thanked her, though his heart sank a little. The praise for Maya only deepened the divide between his fake identity and the truth. As he stepped back outside, an old man shoveling snow called out to him, Hey, don't wander too far, more snow's coming, the man said cheerfully. And hey, have you met Maya? She saved this whole town, not just you. Yes, I know her, Jack replied, voice low, glancing toward the clinic. The townspeople welcomed Ed Ramsey without question, but he knew he didn't belong here. He stopped by the local cafe, where Maya often spent her mornings reading or jotting notes in a worn notebook. One day, he caught her smiling at a child in the cafe, a rare, radiant smile that made his heart tighten. Dr. Maya, can I have extra sugar today? The child asked sweetly. Maya chuckled, ruffling his hair. Just a little, Ben. Don't let your mom find out. She glanced up and met Jack's eyes. Her smile faltered, replaced by a soft nod. Jack felt his heartbeat quicken and quickly looked away, pretending to study the menu. But the past wouldn't stay buried. At night, when the town fell silent, the nightmares returned. In them, Alicia stood beneath a streetlight, blood trailing from an invisible wound. Her eyes locked on his. Why did you abandon me? She asked, her voice echoing from the beyond. He would jolt awake, the sound of Alicia's mother crying once ignored in court ringing in his ears. He'd step out onto the clinic's tiny balcony, letting the icy air cool his burning chest. One evening, Maya invited him to her home as a thank you for the legal letter. Her small house sat at the edge of town, with wilted potted plants on the porch and bookshelves crammed with medical journals and old novels. They sat by the fireplace drinking hot tea, and for the first time Jack felt something close to peace. Maya spoke about the town, her patience, and her decision to stay instead of moving to a big city. Here, I feel like I actually make a difference, she said, eyes lighting up. This town, they really care about you, Jack said, remembering the greetings he'd heard. The store owner called you their treasure today. Maya chuckled, shaking her head. They exaggerate. I'm just doing my job. No, I think they mean it, Jack replied quietly, his gaze lingering on her longer than he meant to. When he asked about her family, she paused, her smile fading. I only have my mother, she said softly, and he knew better than to ask more. Their conversation drifted into silence, the kind that feels full rather than awkward. Jack realized he was drawn to Maya, not just her discipline or honesty, but the quiet sorrow behind her strength. He wanted to tell her the truth, to admit that he wasn't Ed Ramsey, but Jack Radcliffe, a man running from himself. Yet every time he tried, fear held him back. Fear that the truth would destroy the fragile hope forming inside him, the hope that maybe, just maybe, he could start over, that he could become a better man. Maya, meanwhile, sensed the conflict within him. She wasn't sure who Ed really was, but she knew he was hiding something. She wanted to trust him, to believe in the sincerity he showed when helping Mrs. Carter or listening to her stories. But she couldn't shake the feeling that he was fleeing from something far deeper than a car crash. When they said goodnight, their eyes met for a moment and both felt it, a delicate, dangerous connection beginning to form. That night back in his room, Jack couldn't sleep. He kept thinking about Maya, her quiet strength, her rare smile, the eyes that seemed to see right through him. The townspeople's voices echoed in his mind, reminding him of the warmth and honesty of a world he didn't belong to. He knew he stood on a dangerous edge. Ed Ramsey was just a lie, and the truth could destroy everything. But for the first time in 2 years, he felt a sliver of hope. Hope that maybe with Maya's quiet strength, he could finally face the man he used to be. Maya's small house sat quietly on the edge of town, the soft glow of her desk lamp casting shadows on faded wooden walls. The night was still, broken only by the occasional crackle of the fireplace and the wind howling past the windows. She sat at the kitchen table, hands wrapped around a cup of cold tea, her eyes clouded with unease. After her shift, she'd started reorganizing the old bookshelf, a habit she fell into whenever her mind was restless. Medical texts were stacked beside dog-eared novels, handwritten letters, and small keepsakes from distant days. She wasn't looking for anything in particular. She just needed to keep her hands busy to stop thinking about Ed Ramsey, the man with guarded eyes who stirred something between curiosity and caution in her. As she flipped open an old book, a folded newspaper slipped out. The paper, its edges yellowed, landed on the floor. Maya reached down to pick it up, intending to set it aside until the headline struck her like a blow. Victor Moss acquitted in murder of Alicia Ellis. Her chest tightened. The paper was 2 years old, but the pain of losing her sister Alicia was still razor sharp. She unfolded the page with trembling hands, reminding herself to stay strong. A large photo spanned half the page. Victor Moss, wearing a triumphant smile, standing beside his attorney, a tall man with brown hair, piercing eyes, and a self-assured grin. Maya's blood turned cold. The man in the photo was Ed Ramsey. She froze. The paper slipped from her hand and fluttered to the floor. Her breathing quickened, the room suddenly stifling. That face, those deep blue eyes, the strong nose, the polite smile she'd come to know in the past weeks was now staring back at her from the scene of her greatest nightmare. He wasn't Ed Ramsey, the anonymous legal drifter. He was Jack Radcliffe, millionaire lawyer, the man who had used his brilliance to help Victor Moss, the man Maya believed had killed her sister, walk free. The man she saved, the man she'd started to trust, the man she was beginning to feel something for. Maya shot up, pacing the room, fists clenched. She wanted to scream, to storm out and confront him immediately, but she paused, inhaling deeply, forcing herself to rein in the fury boiling beneath her skin. She had been trained to manage emotions in the chaos of the ER, but this was different. This was personal. This was betrayal. She remembered their moments together, how he helped Mrs. Carter, how he listened, how his eyes always seemed to carry a secret. Now that secret had a name, a face, and it felt like a knife in her chest. The next morning, Maya arrived at the clinic earlier than usual. She walked into Jack's room, the folded newspaper gripped tightly in her hand, her eyes like ice. Jack was sitting up in bed, reading a novel he'd borrowed from the hallway shelf. He looked up and smiled, but his smile vanished the moment he saw her face. She didn't say a word. She simply set the paper down on the table. The photograph of him and Victor Moss unmistakably exposed. "Explain," she said, her voice calm but as sharp as a scalpel. "Ed Ramsey or Jack Radcliffe?" Jack looked at the photo. For a moment, his heart stopped. His face drained of color. He stared at the image at himself, captured in a moment of courtroom triumph, back when he believed he was doing the right thing. But worse than the photo was the look in Maya's eyes, anger, betrayal, like a tidal wave poised to crash over him. He had never seen her like this. Not the steady, composed doctor he'd come to know, but a woman consumed by pain. Her fury was so palpable it made him instinctively retreat, his chest tightening. "Maya," he whispered, voice trembling, fingers clutching the edge of the blanket. He wanted to stand, to move toward her, but her eyes, furious, accusing, froze him in place. The fear he felt now wasn't about being exposed. It was the fear of losing something fragile and real. I didn't want to lie to you," he said, his voice cracking. "I used a false name because I was running from everything. I didn't know you'd hate me this much." "You knew who I was, didn't you?" Maya cut him off, her voice shaking. Her eyes burned. "You knew I was Alicia Ellis's sister. You stood there in that courtroom and defended the man who killed her. And now you sit here, pretending to be someone else?" Her words hit like thunder. Jack shook his head, panic creeping in. His eyes widened, breath shortening. Alicia's sister? That truth struck deeper than anything before. He had never considered the possibility that the woman who saved him, who nursed him back to life, was her sister, the victim's sister, the sister of the case that had haunted him for 2 years. "No, Maya, I swear I didn't know." His voice rose, desperate. He raised his hands helplessly. "I had no idea you were Alicia's sister. When you saved me, I was just trying to disappear. The fake name, it wasn't to trick you. It was to escape myself. I didn't mean to lie to you. I just wanted to be someone else, even for a while." Maya let out a dry, bitter laugh. "Afraid? You were afraid." She stepped closer, pointing at the paper. Her voice trembled with rage. "Do you know what my family went through? Do you know what it's like to lose someone you love and watch the man who did it walk free? You helped him, Jack. You knew he was guilty, didn't you? But you still defended him for what? Fame? Money? Glory?" Jack lowered his head, hands covering his face like a man trying to disappear. Shame and regret weighed on him like stone. At the time, I thought I was doing the right thing, he whispered hoarsely. I believed I was defending an innocent man. But after the trial, I started having doubts. A deleted text, a recanted witness. I tried to reinvestigate, Maya, but I didn't have enough. I gave up. I was a coward, and you and your family paid the price. His confession silenced her. Maya had expected denial, excuses, not this raw, aching remorse. She searched his face looking for signs of insincerity, but all she saw was a man breaking from the inside, drowning in guilt. His blue eyes glistened not with tears but with something deeper, heavier. "Then why are you here?" she asked quietly. "Why didn't you tell me the truth?" Jack lifted his head and met her gaze, broken. "Because I couldn't face who I was," he said. "After the accident, when I woke up here, I thought maybe I could start over. Just a little. I didn't know who you were, Maya. If I had, I would have left. I would have never dared to look you in the eye." Maya stood frozen, clutching the newspaper. Her mind was a whirlwind. She wanted to scream at him, to drive him out of town, but something in his voice, in his panic when he realized who she was, gave her pause. He wasn't just shocked about being exposed, he was shaken by her identity. That truth had cut him as deeply as it had her. "I'm not asking for forgiveness," Jack said, voice low and cracked. "I don't deserve it, but I want you to know I never meant to hurt you. Not again. If you want me gone, I'll leave. Right now." Maya didn't answer. She turned and walked out, the newspaper still in her fist. She needed air, space, a moment to breathe through the chaos in her chest. The cold wind hit her face, but it couldn't cool the storm inside. The man she saved, the man she had begun to believe in, was the man who had denied her sister justice. And yet the horror in his eyes, the trembling in his voice, made her wonder, could a man who had failed once truly change? Or was Jack Radcliffe just playing another part in his long game of deception? Back inside, Jack sat alone, staring out the window as snowflakes began to fall again. The fear of losing Maya, their fragile connection, made him tremble. But for the first time, he felt something else too. Not forgiveness, not peace, just the smallest release, because finally he had stopped running. And for a moment, however fleeting, he had faced the truth. Still following the story? If this story found you outside of Soul Stories, we invite you home to where every touching tale begins with truth, hope, and heart. Morning in the small town was veiled in a thin mist, as if the world itself were caught in a fragile dream. Jack Radcliffe stood in front of the clinic, a small suitcase at his feet, eyes fixed on the snow-dusted road leading out of town. He had intended to leave right after Maya discovered his true identity, but something kept him here. Not fear, not cowardice. It was the feeling that he couldn't walk away without facing her again, not to beg for forgiveness, but to help her understand the truth. Who he was, why he came here, and how his mistakes had consumed him from the inside out. He walked through the freezing air, his shoes leaving crisp prints on the snowy ground. Maya's house stood quietly on the edge of town, with wilted potted plants on the porch and thin smoke curling from the chimney. Jack knocked on the door, his heart pounding in his chest. When Maya opened it, her gaze was cold. None of the warmth from days past remained. Arms crossed, she leaned against the doorway, like a fortress of steel between them. "I don't think there's anything left to say, Jack," she said, emphasizing his real name like a verdict. "You should go." Jack took a breath, steadying his voice. "I will, but before I do, I need you to hear me out. Not for an apology, not to justify what I did, just so you'll understand who I am and why I ended up here." Maya didn't invite him in, but she didn't shut the door either. She gave a slight nod, a silent signal to speak. Jack stepped onto the porch, standing a few feet away, hands buried deep in his coat pockets to hide the trembling. 2 years ago, I was a successful, ambitious lawyer, he began, voice low, eyes fixed on the snow clinging to his boots. I grew up dreaming of becoming a lawyer so I could protect justice. My mother was falsely sued when I was a child, lost everything because she didn't have someone to fight for her. I swore I'd never let injustice win again. But once I entered the legal world, everything changed. The money, the attention, the victories, it consumed me. The Alicia Ellis case. It was the peak of my career. It was a tough case, and I won, Maya. I was hailed as a legal hero. But even then, I knew something didn't feel right. He paused, drawing in a shaky breath, as if steeling himself. After the trial, I began to doubt Victor Moss, Jack continued, voice quieter now, as if the words themselves hurt. A deleted message, a witness who changed their story. I tried to reopen the investigation, but I hit a wall. I told myself it wasn't my fault that I'd just done my job. But the truth is, I helped a man who may have murdered your sister walk free. I betrayed the very ideals that made me become a lawyer in the first place. He finally looked up and met Maya's eyes, and for the first time, he didn't flinch. I read an interview with your mother after the trial, he said, voice tight with emotion. She said, "Justice doesn't exist. A good lawyer just needs to be paid enough." That quote, it broke me. Not because I was criticized, but because she was right. I'd used my gift for something wrong, and it's haunted me every day since. The nightmares, the sleepless nights, I couldn't escape it. Maya's arms remained crossed, but her grip had tightened slightly. Her expression didn't soften, but she didn't interrupt. Jack stepped forward a little, voice thickening with urgency. "When I woke up here after the accident, I thought I was dead. But you saved me, Maya. You gave me a second chance I didn't deserve. I used a false name not to deceive you, but because I couldn't face who I really was. I wanted to be Ed Ramsey, a man without Jack Radcliffe's guilt. But when you found out, I realized I couldn't keep running." He stopped, breath forming clouds in the frigid air. "I've never tried to make it right," he said, almost a whisper. "Not until you saved me. You made me want to face the past, to do what's right even if it's too late. I'm not asking for forgiveness. I just want you to know that I won't run anymore. Not for my name, not for pride, but for Alicia. And for you." Maya looked at him, her eyes still filled with doubt. But something within her shifted slightly. Her silence was no longer full of rage, but of deep contemplation. He could feel her listening, weighing, considering. "I'm going back to the city," Jack said, his voice firmer now. "I'm going to reinvestigate Alicia's case, not to make myself feel better, not for redemption, but because it's the only thing I have left that feels right. If you want, I'll share everything I find with you, but if you never want to see me again, I'll disappear." Finally, Maya spoke, her voice low and sharp. "You think saying all this changes anything? My sister is dead, Jack. My family shattered. Nothing you say will undo that." "I know," Jack said, steady, his gaze unwavering. "But I'll still try, even if it's just a sliver of justice for Alicia. I owe her that. I owe you that." Maya turned her face away, eyes drifting toward the snow-covered road, as if shielding her thoughts. "Do what you have to do," she said, her voice cooler but no longer filled with fire. "But don't expect me to thank you." She turned and stepped back inside, closing the door behind her without another glance. The sound of the door shutting echoed like a final punctuation mark, firm, but not final. Jack stood there alone in the bitter cold, but her last look, distant, conflicted, lingered in his mind. It wasn't forgiveness, but it wasn't absolute rejection either. It was a thread, fragile, real, enough to give him something to hold on to. Jack turned and walked back toward the clinic, suitcase trailing through the snow. The path ahead would be long, difficult, but for the first time in 2 years, he had a purpose, not to salvage his reputation, but to make things right, to bring justice to a woman he had once failed. And somewhere in the back of his mind, he knew Maya, whether she ever forgave him or not, had become the quiet flame guiding him forward through the darkness. The city appeared before Jack like a painting of lights and shadows, its gleaming skyscrapers piercing the night sky, unable to chase away the chill that had settled deep in his bones. After nearly a month in the quiet mountain town, he returned to his penthouse, once a symbol of triumph, now just an echoing chamber of regrets. The floor-to-ceiling windows offered sweeping views of the skyline, but they no longer made him feel powerful. Instead, they made him feel small, like a man lost in the very life he'd built. Jack Radcliffe, the millionaire lawyer, had returned not to bask in glory, but to confront the greatest failure of his career, the case of Alicia Ellis. He sat alone in his office, the glow of the computer screen illuminating the fatigue on his face. Before him sat a stack of old case files, documents, transcripts, notes from the trial 2 years ago. He had combed through them dozens of times before, but this time he wasn't seeking a win. He was seeking the truth, not just to make amends with Maya, but to find himself again. Each page he turned felt like a blade, reopening moments he had once ignored, small discrepancies, gut instincts he had buried beneath ambition and pride. He started from the beginning. Jack reached out to people involved in the case. Most refused to speak with him. Some hung up the moment they heard his name, but he persisted. After days of calls and dead ends, he finally tracked down a former witness, Carl Dempsey, Alicia's neighbor, who had once testified that he hadn't seen or heard anything unusual the night she died. But Jack remembered Carl's eyes during the trial, restless, anxious, constantly glancing toward Victor Moss like a man living in fear. Now, Carl lived in a shabby apartment on the outskirts of the city, far from the spotlight. When Jack knocked on the door, Carl opened it with suspicion in his eyes. "I've got nothing to say, Radcliffe," Carl muttered, clutching the doorframe. "It's over." "It's not," Jack said quietly. "I know you were threatened. I'm not here to hurt you. I just want the truth for Alicia." Carl stared at him for a long moment, torn between fear and guilt. At last he sighed and opened the door. Inside, amid the stale air and flickering light of a single overhead bulb, Carl revealed what he had hidden. That night, he'd seen Victor Moss leaving Alicia's building just minutes after hearing a scream. But before the trial, a stranger had approached him with a warning. Speak out, and his family would be in danger. "I had a kid," Carl whispered, voice cracking. "I couldn't take that chance." It was a crucial piece of the puzzle, but not enough. Jack needed something solid. He reached out to a forensic technician he once worked with, a man who had handled Alicia's digital evidence. After repeated attempts, the technician agreed to re-examine Alicia's phone data, which had been wiped clean before the trial. Thanks to newer technology, partial data recovery was now possible. What they found made Jack's breath catch. A message from Victor Moss's number to Alicia, sent just hours before her death. "Meet me tonight. Don't tell anyone." In addition, GPS data placed Victor near Alicia's apartment at the exact time of her murder. Jack sat at his desk, hands trembling as he read the report. This was the proof he had failed to find when it mattered most. But there was no relief, only grief, because this only confirmed the truth. He had helped a killer go free. He thought of Maya, her fury, when she learned who he was. He knew he had to show her what he'd found, no matter the cost. He picked up his phone and scrolled to her number, pausing before pressing call. When her voice came through cold, but not rejecting, his chest tightened. "Maya," he said, voice hesitant, I found something about Alicia's case. I want you to see it, not as an apology. You deserve to know." There was a pause, then her answer flat, unreadable. "Send me the address. I'll come." The next day, Maya arrived at Jack's downtown office. She wore a thick coat, her hair tied back, and her expression unreadable. The wall between them was still there, invisible but impenetrable. Jack led her to a conference room where neatly arranged documents and reports awaited on the table. He walked her through each piece: Carl's confession, the recovered message, the GPS data, his voice low and composed, though his heart pounded with every word. "This is what I've found," he said finally. "I don't know if it's enough to reopen the case, but it's a start. I want to do the right thing, Maya, even if it's too late." Maya flipped through the documents, eyes scanning each line with the precision of a doctor reviewing a patient's chart. She said nothing at first, but Jack noticed the way her fingers gripped the edges of the paper, how her eyes paused at the message from Victor. When she looked up, her gaze was still cold, but there was something else there too. Not forgiveness, but a flicker of acknowledgement that he was trying. "Why are you doing this?" she asked, voice low, sharp. "To redeem yourself? Or just to feel better?" Jack didn't flinch. He met her eyes directly. Both, he said honestly. I was wrong to help Victor walk free. I can't undo what I did, but I can try to make it right. Maya didn't reply right away. She stood glancing around the room, her eyes briefly lingering on the framed awards and diplomas that once defined Jack Radcliffe. Then she turned back to him. I'll review this, she said, but don't think this changes anything between us. She turned and left, leaving Jack in silence. He sat back down, staring at the documents spread before him, feeling both lighter and heavier at once. Lighter, because he had taken a step toward redemption. Heavier because the road to rebuilding trust, if it was even possible, was long and uncertain. But for the first time in 2 years, Jack felt like he was finally walking in the right direction. Not for his name, not for his legacy, but for the truth. And for a woman whose quiet strength had reminded him of the man he once wanted to be. Victor Moss quickly caught wind of Jack's attempt to reopen the case. Just days after Jack submitted a formal request to the district attorney's office for review, the retaliation began. His law firm's accounts were mysteriously frozen due to technical issues. Rumors exploded across legal forums and social media, branding him a traitor to the profession. But the worst came one night. An anonymous message flashed on his phone. Stop, Radcliffe, or the doctor pays the price. Jack's blood turned cold. He thought immediately of Maya. She was still in the city, working with him to examine the new evidence, distant, still guarded after their confrontation back in the mountain town, but actively involved. The idea that Victor was targeting her sent panic rushing through him. He called her without hesitation. Are you okay? He asked, voice tense. Victor knows what we're doing. He just threatened you. On the other end, Maya's voice was calm but resolute. I'm fine. But today, a black car followed me. Then I got a call. A man told me to stop digging, or something bad would happen. Jack gripped the phone, his heartbeat pounding in his ears. Maya, you need to get out of the city. Victor isn't bluffing. She gave a bitter laugh, laced with defiance. Run. If my sister could speak, she'd tell me not to back down. We're seeing this through, Jack. The next day, Maya sent Jack a scan of a previously overlooked medical report she had tracked down through one of Alicia's former colleagues, a nurse who had worked at a nearby clinic. The report documented bruising on Alicia's wrist, consistent with someone being grabbed or restrained before death. It had never been included in court proceedings. Maya's note was brief. This might be a new piece of evidence. Keep going. Jack stared at the file, his chest tight with a strange mix of hope and dread. The bruises could support the theory that Alicia struggled reinforcing the case against Victor. But the deeper they dug, the more real the danger became, especially for Maya. They met at a small cafe, tucked into a quiet corner of the city. Maya sat in a booth at the back, her posture alert, eyes scanning the street even as she sipped her coffee. Jack slid the printed medical report across the table. His voice was low. This is important. What you found could help reopen the case. But Victor's closing in. He threatened you directly, Maya. I can't let you get hurt because of me. Maya met his gaze, her eyes fierce with determination. You think I don't understand danger? I'm a doctor, Jack. I've seen people die. I've watched families shatter. I've lived with the loss of my sister for 2 years. If Victor thinks he can scare me off, he's made a mistake. Jack clenched his fists beneath the table, fighting the rising tide of fear. I know you're strong, but I've already hurt too many people with my mistakes. I can't let you be the next. Maya tilted her head slightly, her expression softening but remaining firm. This isn't just about you. This is about justice for Alicia. Victor wants to intimidate us? Then he's going to find out we're not afraid. Jack couldn't help but feel a surge of admiration, her fire, her clarity, her refusal to back down. But fear still gnawed at him. Promise me, he said, voice tight. If anything feels wrong, you'll tell me immediately. I promise, she said, nodding. But you promise too, don't keep anything from me. We do this together. As they left the cafe, Jack's eyes caught the faint gleam of a black car parked across the street. It slid away just as he looked. Victor was still watching. That night, Jack hired a private investigator, someone with no ties to his past legal connections, to track Victor's movements. Meanwhile, Maya continued combing through Alicia's archived medical records, seeking anything else that might have been missed. Their shared pursuit of justice was no longer just about uncovering the truth. It had become a battle, one that placed them in the path of a man capable of anything. But Maya's unshakable courage, her relentless drive, and the bruised but powerful bond they now shared, these became Jack's anchor. For the first time, it wasn't just guilt propelling him forward, it was her. And no threat, not even from Victor Moss, was going to stop them now. The press room in the city center was packed. Camera tripods lined the front, flashes flickered like lightning, and the murmur of reporters rippled like an undercurrent of tension. Jack Radcliffe stood backstage, fingers clenched tightly around the dossier evidence he and Maya had spent weeks painstakingly assembling. Carl Dempsey's testimony, the GPS data from Victor's phone, the threatening text message, the medical report on Alicia's bruises, everything was ready, laid out to finally expose the truth. But as Jack peered out over the crowd, he didn't feel the old rush of courtroom confidence, no adrenaline-fueled surge of control. Instead, he felt the crushing weight of the moment, not because of pressure, but because of what it meant. Maya stood beside him, calm, upright, her eyes sharp and steady. She wore a simple coat, her hair tied back, but her presence radiated power like an undying flame. She still kept a physical and emotional distance from Jack. But she had chosen to be here not just for Alicia, but for their mother, Ellen Ellis, who had called Maya that morning with a trembling but hopeful voice. "If you can bring justice for your sister, Maya, do it." Those words had become her anchor. They were why she stood here now, ready to face whatever came. Jack glanced at her, heart heavy with both admiration and guilt. "You're sure?" he asked quietly. "After today, everything changes. Victor won't forgive us, and neither will that crowd." Maya looked at him, unwavering. "I'm not here for forgiveness, Jack. I'm here for my sister, for my mother. If we don't do this, who will?" Jack nodded, feeling her conviction settle into his bones. He took a deep breath and stepped into the light. Flashes popped. The crowd hushed. He laid the file on the podium and began to speak, his voice low but clear. "2 years ago, I stood in a courtroom and defended Victor Moss in the murder of Alicia Ellis," he began, his gaze moving across the sea of cameras and eyes. "I won that case, but today I stand here to say I was wrong. I helped a man who may very well be a killer walk free, and in doing so, I failed Alicia's family. But today, with Dr. Maya Ellis, Alicia's sister, we present new evidence. Evidence that cannot be ignored, and we do it to right a wrong." Jack went through each piece meticulously. The text message from Victor, "Meet me tonight, don't let anyone know." The GPS records that placed him at the scene of the crime. Carl Dempsey's revised statement, revealing he had been threatened into silence. And finally, the medical report showing fresh bruises on Alicia's shoulder, bruises consistent with being restrained. Each word Jack spoke felt like a chisel cracking open a stone facade that had stood for too long. Then Maya stepped forward, her voice calm but ringing with strength. "My sister, Alicia Ellis, was not just a victim," she said. "She was a vibrant woman, full of life, and she was taken from us by someone without conscience. My mother, Ellen Ellis, has lived with that pain for 2 years. Today, we're not here for revenge. We're here for justice for Alicia and for every person the system failed." The room erupted. Questions flew from every direction. Flashes strobed. A reporter shouted, "Radcliffe, are you admitting guilt? Do you think Victor Moss will be arrested?" Jack didn't respond immediately. His eyes found Maya's. She gave a slight nod. "I'm not here to speculate," Jack said. "I'm here to make sure the truth is heard. Victor Moss will face justice, and I'll do everything in my power to make sure he does." As the press conference ended, Jack and Maya stepped down from the stage, their eyes briefly locking. But before they could leave, a group of plainclothes officers entered the room. At the front was a detective Jack recognized from his court days. The detective gave Jack a curt nod before turning to the reporters. "Based on the new evidence presented today, we have secured an arrest warrant for Victor Moss," he announced. "He is now in custody and under formal investigation." The room exploded. Journalists surged forward. Microphones were shoved toward the detective. News alerts hit social media in real time. Hashtags like #Justice for Alicia and #Victor Moss arrested began trending, accompanied by video clips from the conference. Jack and Maya stood silently in the corner, watching the chaos unfold. But inside Jack, there was no triumphant swell of vindication. Instead, there was something deeper, a release. As if the unbearable weight that had suffocated him for 2 years had finally been lifted from his chest. Maya turned to him. Her gaze remained cool, but there was a subtle shift, a gentler tone in her voice. "Today wasn't a victory," she said softly, "but it was a beginning. My mom, she'll want to hear this." Jack nodded, emotion rising in his throat. "I'll contact the DA's office. I'll make sure the case gets the attention it deserves. And Maya, thank you for being here, even when you didn't have to be." She didn't reply at first. She studied him for a long moment before turning away. But in her silence, something had changed. Jack didn't see forgiveness in her eyes, but he saw something else. Acknowledgement that they had done the impossible together. As they walked out of the press room, Jack felt a new weight settle on him. Not of guilt, but of responsibility. Victor Moss had been arrested, but justice wasn't finished yet. And whatever came next, Jack knew one thing. Whether Maya ever forgave him or not, she had become an unshakable part of his redemption. You're watching Soul Stories, exclusive to our channel. If you're still with us, drop a comment we read and cherish them all. Subscribe to support more heartfelt original stories. Thanks for being part of the Soul Stories family. Bottom of form. Courtroom 3 of the City Supreme Court was thick with tension, as if the entire room were holding its breath. The wooden benches were packed journalists, members of the public, and the grieving families who had followed every twist of a case that once shook the city to its core. At the defendant's table sat Victor Moss, dressed in a pale gray suit, his expression cold, void of the smug smile he had worn 2 years ago. Across from him, Jack Radcliffe took the witness stand, his eyes sharp, but his face drawn with fatigue. At the front row, Maya Ellis sat with her hands clasped tightly, her gaze fixed on the front, where justice was finally being weighed. The trial had stretched across 3 grueling weeks, each day a battle. The prosecution, armed with the evidence Jack and Maya had unearthed, presented a seamless case. Carl Dempsey's testimony, the GPS data from Victor's phone, the text message Victor had sent to Alicia, and the medical report detailing bruises on her shoulder together, they formed a web that Victor's elite legal team could not dismantle. When the jury returned a verdict of guilty for first-degree murder, the courtroom erupted into quiet gasps and the sound of muffled sobs. Ellen Ellis, mother of Maya and Alicia, leaned forward from behind Maya and embraced her, tears falling freely. "You did it, Maya," she whispered. "You brought Alicia home." In the corner of the courtroom, Jack stood alone. He didn't feel victorious, not like he once did after a big case. What he felt was release. Deep, aching release. Justice had been served, yes, but the wounds left behind would never truly heal. Not for Maya, not for her mother, and not for him. Later that evening, Jack and Maya met at a quiet cafe on the city's edge. Soft jazz played from hidden speakers, and the warm light gave the place a calm glow. They sat across from each other, separated not by distance, but by all the words they hadn't yet said. Maya held a coffee cup in her hands, her expression introspective, as if she were still wrestling with emotions she hadn't yet allowed to surface. "Victor won't be getting out," Jack began, his voice low. "I spoke to the prosecutors. Life without parole. Alicia finally has justice." Maya nodded, but her eyes remained on the swirling surface of her coffee. "Justice," she repeated, almost testing the word. "I thought today would feel more freeing. But it doesn't. It doesn't bring my sister back. It doesn't erase the years my mother spent in grief." Jack lowered his head, his hands gripping his glass. "I know," he murmured. "I know I can't undo what I did. I let Victor walk free the first time, and I'll carry that guilt forever. But Maya, I hope you can see that I've done everything I could to make it right." Maya looked up, her eyes meeting his. In them, he saw a storm of emotions. Anger, sorrow, but also something else. Something new. Something he hadn't dared to hope for. "You saved justice from yourself, Jack," she said, her voice calm but heavy. "No one else could have done that. Not the prosecutors, not the police, not even my mother or I. You stood up, admitted your failure, and brought down Victor Moss. That's something I can't ignore." Her words stunned him. He wanted to believe they were a sign of forgiveness, but he knew better. He wasn't worthy of that yet. He inhaled shakily, his gaze dropping. "I don't deserve you, Maya," he said quietly. "Not after everything. Not after the pain I've caused you and your family. I don't even know how to live with that." Maya studied him for a long moment, then leaned forward slightly. Her voice softened, but her strength remained intact. "No one deserves love, Jack," she said. "People choose to love and to forgive. I haven't forgiven you. Not entirely. Maybe I'll need a long time. But I see what you've done, and I know my sister. If she were alive, she wouldn't want me to live the rest of my life in hate." Jack felt his chest tighten, not with pain, but with something he hadn't felt in years. Hope. Fragile. Flickering. But real. He opened his mouth to speak, but no words came. Instead, he simply nodded, locking eyes with her as if trying to etch this moment into memory. They sat in silence for a while, this time more comfortably than before. Maya told him about her mother, how Ellen had cried when the verdict was read. But this time, the tears had been ones of release. She said, "Even though you failed her once, you helped her find peace," Maya said. "She wanted me to ask you why you changed." Jack gave a quiet, bitter smile. "I'll visit her, but I'm not sure I can explain it. Maybe it's because of you. Because you showed me I could still do the right thing, even if it was too late." Maya didn't reply, but her expression softened again, as though she was truly hearing him now. When they left the cafe, night had fallen. Streetlights bathed the sidewalk in a hazy glow. Jack walked Maya back to her hotel. As she reached the door, she turned back, looked him in the eye. "Don't stop, Jack," she said, voice low but firm. "Not for me, for you." Then she disappeared behind the door, leaving Jack alone on the sidewalk, a cold wind brushing against his coat. Justice had been served, but he knew this wasn't the end. Maya's forgiveness, if it ever came, would be hard-earned, and he would spend the rest of his life trying to be worthy of it. For the first time, Jack felt like he wasn't walking for redemption. He was walking toward something. Not for fame, not for reputation, but for the chance to become what he had once dreamed of being as a boy, a protector of justice, whatever the cost. A year had passed, and the city had softened under the crisp chill of winter. Snowflakes fell gently, covering the suburban roads in a fine white layer. Nestled on a hillside, a small house with a red-tiled roof and a simple wooden fence had become the place Jack Radcliffe and Maya Ellis called home. Inside, the space was warm, filled with the scent of burning wood from the fireplace and the crackle of fire blending with the soft yellow glow of a table lamp. Bookshelves packed with medical and legal texts stood side by side, a symbol of two people who had found common ground on a path that once seemed impossible. Jack was no longer the millionaire attorney in expensive suits, standing in courtrooms with a proud gaze. Now he stood in front of a small lecture hall at the law school, teaching legal ethics to young students who looked at him with curiosity and reverence. He told them his own story, not of his greatest victories, but of his greatest mistake, the Alicia Ellis case. "Law isn't just a tool to win," he said during one lecture, his voice low but weighty. "It's a responsibility to protect justice even when that means admitting your own mistakes." The students took notes, but Jack knew the lesson wasn't just for them. It was a daily reminder he gave himself. Outside of teaching, Jack still practiced law, but not in fancy offices or on behalf of wealthy clients. He spent his time helping the vulnerable, those the justice system had abandoned, those who couldn't afford legal representation. He worked with nonprofit organizations, supporting victims of domestic violence, those falsely accused, or families who had lost loved ones due to systemic failures. Every case he took on felt like a form of atonement, a way to prove that justice, even if delayed, could still be delivered. He wasn't searching for fame anymore, only peace of mind. And with each person he helped, he felt one step closer to finding it. Maya, meanwhile, continued her work as a doctor. She still worked at the regional hospital, but now devoted more time to a cause close to her heart: a free clinic for abused women and those in need of medical care they couldn't afford. She often worked late into the night, reviewing patient files, treating wounds, or simply listening to heartbreaking stories from the women who came to her. "I can't save everyone," she had once told Jack, as they sat by the fireplace in their small home, "but I can give them a place where they feel safe." Her project was partially funded by a charity foundation Jack had quietly supported, though he never admitted it to her face. Their life was far from perfect. There were still heavy silences, moments when memories of Alicia and the Victor Moss case resurfaced. Sometimes Maya would look at Jack with a distant gaze, as if still wondering whether she had truly forgiven him. But they had learned to live with those scars like two soldiers returning from war, carrying wounds yet choosing to walk forward together. Their modest home, though simple, was a place where they built a new life, not based on perfect romance, but on mutual respect, shared burdens, and a love forged through trials. One winter afternoon, as the snow fell heavier, Jack and Maya stood outside the house, looking toward the road that led to the old bus stop where Jack had once awakened after the accident more than a year ago. Snow blanketed the ground, creating a peaceful scene, as if the world had paused so they could breathe. Jack held Maya's hand, his palm warm in the freezing cold. She let him hold her hand, but her gaze remained fixed on the distance, where mist-covered mountains stood silently. "Thank you, Maya," Jack said softly, his voice deep and sincere. "That day when I crashed, I thought I had died, but that was the day I started to live, because of you, your sister, and everything you've taught me." Maya turned to him, her eyes gentle but still holding a trace of resolve, just like the doctor he'd met on that snowy night. "I didn't save you so you could thank me, Jack," she said, her voice quiet but firm. "I saved you because it was the right thing to do. And you did the right thing too, even if it came late." Jack smiled a smile, no longer tinged with bitterness. "I still haven't forgiven myself," he admitted, "but every day I try to be worthy of this second chance of you, of this life." Maya didn't reply right away. She gave his hand a gentle squeeze, then rested her head on his shoulder, a rare gesture, but one full of meaning. "We're all trying," she whispered, "and that's enough." They stood there surrounded by white snow, their breath forming soft clouds in the air. In the distance, the bell at the bus stop rang, signaling a departing bus. Jack looked toward it, recalling the moment he'd woken up in the medical station, with Maya's eyes gazing down at him, eyes that had changed everything. He was no longer the arrogant Jack Radcliffe of the past, nor the fugitive Ed Ramsey. He was a man who had found purpose thanks to Maya, to Alicia, and to the very mistakes that had shaped him into someone worthy of life. A cold gust of wind blew through, sending snowflakes swirling. Jack pulled Maya closer, wrapping his arms around her, and for the first time in a year, he felt his heart grow lighter, as if the snow had blanketed over old scars, not to erase them, but to remind him that even in the coldest winters, life could still take root.